You are Locked On Dodgers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Dodgers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. I am your host, Pete Fox. Another tough one today for the Dodgers as they wrap up this series in Milwaukee against the Brewers with a series split, losing 6-4 today. Today's episode of the Locked On Dodgers Postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is a great app to download and get tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, the Dodgers fought their way back in this one, down 3-0 early after Jack Flaherty gave up 3 in the bottom of the first. The Dodgers answered back in the top of the second with 2 and 1 more in the third to tie the game. Then they rolled on, tied for a couple of innings. Dodgers grabbed the lead in the 6th, and then the bullpen kind of fell apart. Daniel Hudson came in and was just flat out not good. So we put this one on Daniel Hudson, not really on Flaherty. And the fact that the rest of the bullpen did an okay job today. Really good, as a matter of fact. Kike, 1 inning, 1 strikeout, the rest zeros, 15 pitches. Vesia got out of a nice jam, which we'll get into. Zeros across the board. He had 2 walks, but again, got out with no harm after 1 strikeout. Hudson had a tough go, 2/3 of an inning, 3 runs on 3 hits. The Brewers were just squaring up everything at that point, and Hudson just didn't have it today. So it's definitely his fault. We'll blame him. I don't know that it's Dave Roberts' fault for saying, all right, I'm going to bring Hudson in right at this point, because Hudson's been very good of late. So you can't feel like, well, that was a terrible decision. They're not always going to work out the way that you hope. Bonda came in the 9th, or the bottom of the 8th, rather, to close it down, or he finished off the Hudson frame in the bottom of the 8th with an out there, 1 pitch. So easy outing, easy day for Bonda. But the Dodgers fall here, and I think this series is really, really, it's disappointing because we expected more the way they came in, winning the first 2 after a sweep of the Pirates, and they looked good in the first 2 games. Everything was rolling along. And then yesterday happens, and again, it was a similar game to this one, and the Dodgers just couldn't deal with the fight that the team like the Brewers has, a team that is used to coming back. They have the best comeback ratio in all of baseball, or I'm sorry, in the National League. So they're a team that comes back quite frequently. And the Dodgers, on the other hand, are front runners. Most of the time, they do not come back. This is not something they are comfortable with. When trailing again after 8 innings, the Dodgers are now 3-42. So that's just not a good place to be. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you get out of that. I don't know how you become a comeback team, but the Dodgers don't have it. And the fact that they came back a little today is something, down 3-0. They answered back in the next 2 frames and tied the game. That's nice to see. But the fact is that there just wasn't a ton of, again, all happened in the first few innings. That stat I threw out yesterday about the Dodgers being really bad scoring after the 5th kind of holds true again today. They did score 1 run, which gave them the lead. But again, all the scoring comes in the early part of the game, and they don't have this ability to, obviously they have a desire, but not an ability to score runs late in the game. So that's not a good place to be. It made a lot of contact today against Myers. Myers is a guy that throws the ball over the plate and hopes his defense can play defense behind him. The Dodgers early in the game, I believe it was the 4th or the 5th when they threw this stat out. Myers was 2 of 30 on swing and misses. So he threw at that point 32 pitches, and the Dodgers hit all of them or made contact with all of them but 2. So the fact that the Dodgers didn't score more and put this one out of hand early was kind of a missed opportunity against a guy like that. That is not a strikeout pitcher that puts balls over the plate, and the Dodgers have the opportunity to make contact and put the ball in play. Let's look at Flaherty's outing. 5 innings, 3 runs on 4 hits, and just 2 walks and 7 Ks. I thought once he got out of that first, he really had it working nice. The knuckle curve was pretty nasty on his strikeouts. His first strikeout was a knuckle curve, as was the second. Then a couple of 4-seamers. He had a slider for K number 5, then a fastball, and then a really nasty knuckle curve for his 7th strikeout of the game. So all in all, a good outing from him. I wouldn't call it great, but good. He gave up 2 home runs in the first, 93 pitches in all. The ERA now at 3.06. Churio, the first home run, and Contreras, who kind of beat up the Dodgers in this series throughout, had the second home run, a 472 17-footer. So yeah, the Dodgers bullpen really kind of was leaky and shaky, as who said this? Orlando made the point. Yeah, leaky and shaky. One bad outing from one bad guy. I don't know that they're leaky and shaky. That's a bit of an exaggeration, I would say, because all the rest of them are good. Kopech was good. Vesia was good. Banda was good. And the bottom line was Daniel Hudson was not. And this is kind of the reason. I was actually chatting with Jeff, host of the Locked On Dodgers podcast on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed today during the game. And he was pointing out that he's a guy that believes in matchups. And following the stats and all of that. And it's hard to argue with stats because they're real. I argue against that with emotion, and you feel stupid sometimes because when someone says these are the stats and I'm going to play the probability, right? Versus, well, I'm going to play with emotion. And I feel like this is, Jeff and I differ on a lot of things. And this is one of the things, he would, if he was the Dodgers manager, he would go, okay, in this particular situation, this matchup gives us a better opportunity. So I'm going to run Kopech out there in the 6th because the heart of the lineup is coming up. I'm like, that's a good point. And Kopech went out there, did his job, took care of business. Right. But I would say the way Kopech's been throwing the ball lately, I'm going to overlook that probability of 10 to 20%. I'm going to run Hudson out there in the 6th, bring Kopech in the 8th, which has, to me, the probability of being a higher leverage situation. And although Daniel Hudson has been very good of late, I feel like Kopech is better. So I'm going to put him in there in a situation. Now, of course, Hudson could have had his struggles in the 6th, and the Brewers grabbed the lead there, and the 8th doesn't mean as much. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, and most of it is based on trying to predict the future, right? And that's nearly impossible. Roy says, this is not one bad outing by Hudson. Look back and see how many times he has gone in and gave up a run. No, I'm not saying that he hasn't done that, Roy. I'm saying of late, he's been pretty good. Let's look at what he's done of late, because he's been they've been bringing him in to be the closer. Last 7 days, 3 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 1 home run, versus Milwaukee. Well, they don't have today's in there, I guess, yet. So he's been pretty good. Not saying he's been complete shutdown. He hasn't been Vesia or Kopech, who has been lights out. And we'll get into Kopech's numbers here in just a little bit after the break, because they're pretty phenomenal. And something else I'm going to share with you, for those of you that are way into statistical stuff, the numbers, I went down the rabbit hole last night after the show on high leverage batting average for some of the Dodger heavy hitters. Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, to name 2. And I have some very interesting statistical stuff for you that will kind of put a little bit of clarity as to how good or bad some of these guys are, or these 2 specific guys in different situations. So get ready for a statistical rabbit hole coming up after the break. I'm Pete Fox. And this is the Locked On Dodgers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. I've been covering sports in LA dating back to 2007 for ESPN and NBC. They like me to tell you that because, it makes me seem credible. And I appreciate you guys chiming in and jumping in and watching here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel and listening on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. You everydayers make it possible for us to do this, and we appreciate you for making us your source for your team every day. Today's episode of the Locked On Dodgers postcast brought to you by Game Time. Game Time, when it comes to buying tickets, is my first go-to. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. This is one of my reasons that I love it, because I love getting a bargain, getting a deal, and I don't mind waiting a little bit longer because it kind of makes it more exciting. So if you're willing to wait up to an hour before game time to maybe have a spur of the moment, spontaneous appearance at a baseball game, it could save you a lot of money. And they have killer last minute deals. Even if you don't wait up to the last minute or the last hour, rather, they have all in pricing. And another thing I'm a big fan of is a view from the seat. So when you're searching for tickets, you click on that ticket and it'll show you what you will see from your seat. They have the lowest price guarantee, and it takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets at Game Time. Last minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area, views from the seats, and the lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. So head over to Game Time, download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute ticket deals, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's show also brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 players and their stat projection for the game, whether that is strikeouts, total bases, on base percentage, home runs. There's a lot of different options there. They give you plenty to choose from. They also give you higher odds and lower odds. They do that with this thing called the Demons and Goblins. It's the newest and most exciting way to play a prize pick. Red Demons give you higher odds. They're a little harder to hit. Green Goblins are a little bit easier to hit, but don't pay quite as much. But if you pick 4 Red Demons, bet $10 and hit those 4, you can win up to $1,000. They also have quick and easy withdrawals. My initial deposit was super painless and hassle-free. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states, including California, Georgia, and Texas. They have promotions like lowering stat projections on Tuesday, and you can get your entry fees back on Friday if you lose. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use that code for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. PrizePicks, it is that easy. All right, Dodgers let one slip away. They battled back down 3-0 to tie it at 3, grabbed a 4-3 lead, and the Dodgers blew it in the 8th inning as Daniel Hudson came in and gave up 3 runs. Here was Jeff's point that we were talking about. That's kind of my point. We knew it was a 1-1 game in the 6th, tied actually when he started warming up, so that was guaranteed high leverage situation. Yeah. It's hard. It's easy to look back now and go, wow, they should have brought somebody else in, but they didn't, and they lost. So, yeah, look, this one's on Hudson for sure. There's no one else to put it on. But the bottom line is I feel like Hudson has been fairly reliable of late. So let me go back and look at Hudson's numbers here real quick, and we'll get to the Diamond Dogs list in a little bit. We did have some offense from the Dodgers. That was nice to see. In the month of August, let's do that since we're now 15 days in, halfway through. Hudson has pitched in 6 games, 6 innings. He's given up 2 runs on 3 hits, which I'm assuming does not include today. So that would be 5 runs on, how many hits did he give up today? They don't have, why don't they have today's in there? I figure ESPN would be more on updating the stats. So 5 runs on 6 hits. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something you want to brag about if you're Daniel Hudson or a big fan of Daniel Hudson. It could be better. But look, the Dodgers, they do a very good job of moving through the bullpen, right? And they got to throw somebody out there, So some of the guys that pitched last night maybe potentially weren't available today. Hudson didn't pitch last night, so they're going to throw him out there today. If Hudson, let's see what Blair has to say. If Hudson pitches in the 6th and gives up a run, it's better than the 8th when you're only 3 outs from the end of the game, giving the Dodgers a little bit more of an opportunity to come back. Fair point. But the Dodgers still are not a team that rallies well. But yeah, well, what if, he didn't give up just 1 run, Blair. He gave up 3 runs. So, down 6-4 to a certain extent. Yeah, that's right. You're right. If they're down 6-4 in the 7th versus the 8th, they have 1 more frame to try to score. Sure. But the bottom line is that the Dodgers are not a good team when it comes to rallying late in the game. The fact that they don't put up runs late in the game is a real problem for them. I don't know where you get that energy. I don't know where you get that momentum. I don't know where you find that chip in your brain to say, hey, let's become more of a comeback team, a team that can rally when you're down. It's either something you have or something you don't. It's kind of like being a long distance runner. You either are one or you're not. Like, you can't just decide, hey, you know what? I think I want to go run 20 miles. There are people that do that all the time, every day. They'll run 5-10 miles a day. And there are people like me that only do that when their car breaks down on the side of the road and, need to get to the nearest city. Like, that's the only way you could get me to run that kind of a distance. So the Dodgers are just not a comeback team. They are more of a front running team. They need to put up big runs and try to hold on to these leads. And they have a fairly decent bullpen. But, the bigger part right now is that they're not putting up enough runs. They're not front running in the last couple of games anyway. The first couple of games of the series looked pretty good. But, Shohei just 1 for 5 today. Teoscar 1 for 4. Freddie 1 for 4 with the run scored. Will Smith 1 for 4. So all in all, the Dodgers out-hit the Brewers in this game 10-7, but just couldn't really make anything happen as far as runners in scoring position. Again, not terrible. 3 for 11. It could have been considerably worse. They left 6 on base. And to speak to this stat thing, this rabbit hole that I went down yesterday with regard to Shohei Ohtani and his high leverage batting versus his low leverage batting, right? We talked yesterday, we got into the discussion towards the end that nobody fears Shohei. And I kind of agreed. That was a little bit wrong, inaccurate. I feel like they don't necessarily fear him, but the fact of the matter is, if Shohei walked up there with a billboard that had his stats on it, you couldn't argue that the guy is effective, right? He's very effective. But here's what's interesting about Shohei. The high leverage situation is very good. His low leverage numbers, though, are better. For example, his OPS high leverage 857, which is top 25 in baseball. His low leverage OPS is 1,017. So it's a better number. So not to say that 857 is bad. He's just better in low leverage situations. He has 20 home runs in low leverage situations, just 1 in high leverage situations. 34 RBI in low leverage situations, 12 in high leverage. He has considerably more Ks, though. This is what kind of Like, I could make a stronger point if it wasn't for this number, because the average is basically the same, right around 300. But he has more strikeouts in low leverage situations than he does in high leverage situations. So when we get frustrated that Shohei strikes out in meaningful high leverage situations, we're wrong, because he doesn't do it all that often. 12 strikeouts in high leverage situations. As far as his numbers with runners in scoring position, his numbers are good, but not great. They're very good compared to league average. His OPS with runners in scoring position, 682. His batting average is 227. That's not great. 38 RBIs and 110 at bats, 25 Ks, 2 home runs, and 6 doubles. But then again, home runs with runners in scoring position is kind of not a stat that means a whole lot. Now let's compare those to Teoscar Hernandez, who I said last night I feel like is better in high leverage situations. I was wrong, and I'm willing to admit it. I wasn't wrong by much, because I was just speaking about a feeling. I wasn't speaking based on stats. In high leverage situations, Teoscar Hernandez is not as good as Shohei. Again, still very good. Top 25 in the league. His OPS is 777. His low leverage OPS is 795. His batting average, 271 in high leverage. In low leverage, 256. But his home runs, 2 home runs in high leverage, 12 home runs in low leverage. The RBIs are a little bit better than Shohei's, to be clear. High leverage situation, he has 19 RBIs versus 12 for Shohei. And in low leverage, he has 22 RBI. As far as the Ks, same as Shohei. Considerably fewer in high leverage and 68 in low leverage, just 19 in high leverage situations. But as far as runners in scoring position, this is where he is better than Shohei Ohtani, statistically speaking. His average is better, 282. We're talking about Teo here. His OPS is 906 versus 682. He has 55 RBI with runner in scoring position and 131 at bats. Considerably more Ks, though. It's always the problem with Teo. 45 Ks, 7 home runs with runners in scoring position, and 8 doubles. So both of those guys are better in low leverage situations, but they're also very, very good compared to the rest of the league in high leverage situations. Out of time to talk about the Diamond Dogs list for this segment, but I promise we'll do it coming up next in the final segment of the show. And the other thing I wanted to get to, probably the one thing that we're going to really overlook in this game that was way better today than it was in yesterday's game, even though they lost both of them. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Dodgers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out whenever a game is done. You can also listen on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. That's where you find Jeff and Vince doing the daily Locked On Daily podcast for the Dodgers. And they come on usually right after the game, and then it'll be ready for you first thing in the morning. So you make those guys your first listen, and you make me your second listen right after the game is over. And we thank you everydayers for making Locked On your source for your team every day. Today's episode of the Locked On Dodgers postcast is also brought to you by Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV. Popsicle firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients for the #1 powered hydration brand in the business, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. A blast off with that iconic summer flavor, Popsicle firecracker. That just, invokes those red, white, and blue popsicles that we ate as a kid or as an adult, because I still love them. A festive blend of citrus fuel, lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. Find all your favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry to lemon lime and pina colada. Powered by Live Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. And if you live in a hot spot like I do, and you're out playing golf or whatever, water's great, but fueled water, live water is better. It keeps you from getting dehydrated and running out of energy and gas by the time you hit the 18th hole. So definitely make it a part of your hiking or your golf or tennis or whatever you do for your sports activities, 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and dairy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using the promo code MLB at checkout on liquidiv.com. All right, Dodgers fall 6-4, split the series with the Brewers in Milwaukee. On to St. Louis to face the Cardinals starting tomorrow. Good news there. The Cardinals have been struggling. But the thing today that worked out way better for the Dodgers in this loss, no errors. How about that? Woo! Yesterday was brutal. I mean, it was so bad that I didn't even remember to mention it. I was just trying to ignore it and forget it. 3 errors yesterday, including one from Mookie Betts in right field, which was like really surprising. But the fact they came out today and cleaned that up is good because the Dodgers are a very good defensive team. And another thing that happened today that I don't think I've ever seen before is in the Daniel Hudson frame when he gave up 3 in the bottom of the 8th. 2 balls went off his foot. I don't think I've ever seen 2 balls bounce off a pitcher's foot in the same inning. That was kind of crazy. Here's today's Diamond Dogs list. For number 5, Andy Pajas, a double to left in the second. It scored Miggy Rojas, and it made it a 1-run ball game. For number 4, Gavin Lux, a single center, part of 2 singles on the day, or 2 hits on the day for him. It scored Freeman, and it tied the game at 3. We were tied for a minute into the 6th inning when the Dodgers grabbed the lead 4-3, but they couldn't make that stand up. For number 3, Miggy Rojas, a single to right in the 6th. Good situational hitting from him, poking the ball into right field. So that was nice to see. And then for number 2, Kike Hernandez, a 2-out RBI single to right in the 6th, scoring Gavin Lux. He has had RBIs in 10 of his last 12 games. And for number 1, I would put not offensively, but defensively, Michael Kopech's frame in the 6th inning was lights out. Blew it up around 100 at least 2 times, 15 pitches, 1 strikeout, the rest zeros. He's pitched 7 innings for the Dodgers, allowed just 1 hit, and has 11 Ks. I am a firm believer, and this is another thing that Jeff and I from the Locked On Dodgers podcast disagree on. He thinks that you can do closer by committee based on stats and whatnot. I believe that you get more benefit from having somebody who knows that that's his role. I'm the closer, I'm the setup man, etc., etc. So that's what I'm rooting for. That's what I'm hoping for, that Michael Kopech becomes the Dodgers closer and they find a solid guy to come in. Maybe Michael Grove as the 8th guy. Daniel Hudson can be the 7th guy. And then you use for the 7th and the 8th, or the 6th and the 7th, the lefty righty matchup combos with Bonda or Vesia. Obviously we got to get those guys in there whenever we can because they're pitching very well as well. And the lefty thing is quite frequently very tough, especially when you can dot fastballs the way those guys can, because they've both been very good of late. Vesia's ERA still well below 2 at 1.75. Bonda a little over 2 at 2.39. But yeah, the idea to me of having a solid regular closer, the way the Brewers do, is Devin Williams guy is lights out. What did he do today? 7 pitches yesterday. Today he came in, struck out 2 in the 9th, threw 16 pitches, the rest zeros, and keeping that ERA at a paltry 1.5. So yeah, I believe that having a solid regular closer every day is the way to go, and I hope it becomes Michael Kopech sooner before later, because I think that would be a good thing for the Dodgers. A couple final thoughts here from Rumar, Oakland or Orlando. If you feel they got lucky hits and runs accidentally, they wouldn't be tops in the division and wouldn't be this good of a team. But when a full force, don't want to face the Dodgers. But when they're full force, you don't want to face the Dodgers. Good point. And I hope they get back there, Ramar. I hope they get back to being full force. I was hoping that this was the turning point, that this series coming off the sweep of the Pirates in LA on to Milwaukee, a team that they have won in spite of losing today. They won the season series against the Brewers to the best of my knowledge. I think that was maybe not. Maybe they split the season series. I don't know. Maybe the Brewers won. I'm forgetting the damn thing. I thought I heard yesterday that regardless of what happens in the game, the Dodgers will win the season series. Anyway, look, they've played well against the Brewers this year, and splitting this series is not terrible. But I was hoping that they would win the series, maybe even sweep it, and continue to build on the momentum that they gained from Mookie returning. That's still a work in progress, as we've seen. Mookie coming back has been good. He was great in the game, the first 3 games that he played so far. He's been good. And I think there's something there. Obviously, getting this team back in order the way it was early in the season is imperative. And having Mookie in the lineup is crucial. So the Dodgers will continue to work on that and find their rhythm, find their momentum. Flaherty in the starting rotation is obviously a good thing for them as well. So having him back there, having Kershaw be effective, having Glasnow be effective, Gavin Stone, all of these guys have been pitching well in the starting lineup, and that's good to see. Let's keep that rolling. Let's find a little bit more offensive momentum and build on what happened in the early part of this series as they head on to face the St. Louis Cardinals. Tomorrow's game is at 5:15. According to ESPN, the Dodgers are still undecided as to who is going to start. The Cardinals come in with a 60-61 record, riding a 4-game losing streak, swept by the Reds in Cincinnati. So obviously they're going to be a little ticked off coming home, wanting to get back on track. So the Dodgers will always have their hands full. Dodgers always have very interesting series against the St. Louis Cardinals, but they leave now 20 games over 500, 71-51, 33-29 on the road. Final thought. Here's where we stand in the standings after splitting this series. Dodgers now just 2 up on the Diamondbacks and Padres. 2 up. Eesh. That is too damn close for comfort. So did they play today or were they off today? Rockies 11-4. When was that game? I think that was yesterday, right? Yeah, that was yesterday. So they were off today. And appears the Padres are as well. So the half game was the Dodgers loss. So 2 games, man. That's nothing. Got to get our butts in gear and start winning some series and wheeling off 5 in a row on a regular basis. Hey, thank you for joining me here on the Locked On Dodgers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. The place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen to us on the Locked On Dodgers podcast feed. That's where you get Jeff and Vince doing the Locked On Daily Dodgers podcast. And we thank you as an everydayer for making us your source for your team every day here at Locked On Sports. Have a good afternoon and evening, and we'll talk tomorrow after game 1 against the Cardinals in St. Louis. Have a good night.